Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices Grab and Go Best Practices webinar. My name is Stephanie Eldred and I am the Center for Best Practices Associate. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sodexo Stop Hunger Foundation for making this webinar possible. And before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items that I just need to let you all know about. First, attendees are in listen-only mode. We will be recording this webinar today, and we will circulate the slides and the webinar recording later this week. Also, we will be taking questions at the end of this webinar. Please use the question box for your questions, and we will read them out loud or respond to them individually during the question and answer section. And without further ado, I would like to introduce my colleague, Summer Kriegshauser, to begin the webinar.
Thank you, Stephanie. Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled that all of you are here to learn about grab-and-go best practices. I'd like to quickly go over the agenda for the webinar. First, I will introduce our speakers that we have today. Then I'll talk a little bit about Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry, and what we do at the Center for Best Practices. We'll go over the 2015 pilot study that No Kid Hungry did. Then I'll share some best practices based off of that pilot study. We have two food service directors today that will be speaking about their experience in using grab-and-go in their districts. And then we'll talk about the No Kid Hungry blog, which will highlight the breakfast champions. And then we have a question and answer period at the end. So the speakers today, Stephanie introduced myself. I am Summer Kriegshauser, Program Manager at No Kid Hungry. My colleague Casey Mitchell will be joining us. She is a manager in our Program Innovations Department here at No Kid Hungry. Our first food service director will be Michael Marcinelli. He will be from the Montgomery County Public Schools, and Kathy Garrett at Saranac Central School District. So just a little bit of information about Share Our Strength. Share Our Strength employs an innovative three-pronged approach to ending childhood hunger. So we focus on increasing access to the federal nutrition programs to start. We also work to empower families through our Cooking Matters program. And then finally, we work to drive awareness of childhood hunger at the national, state, and local level. Our Center for Best Practices lies within the No Kid Hungry program, campaign, and it provides the tools and the resources needed to help elected officials and their staff, as well as educators and community leaders, achieve success in fighting childhood hunger. We provide things like trainings, toolkits, case studies, hunger statistics, issue briefs, reports, and more things that really best utilize the federal nutrition programs like school breakfast and summer meals. And we are always producing new resources and offering more trainings, so please subscribe on our homepage to receive monthly updates. And here is the breakfast page on our Center for Best Practices, and the subscribe button is right above the search button. So I hope all of you will take advantage of that. Before we continue, we would like to do a poll to see who is joining us today. So we're going to pull that up. And we're just pulling that up right now. Maybe. Great. I can see you all are taking the poll currently. We're going to leave that open for just a little bit longer, about 10 to 20 more seconds. And I think we'll close out the poll. So it looks like the majority of you are Food and Nutrition Service staff, coming in at about 43%. We also have some community partners and nonprofit organizations, a few principals, and then some of you who just do not fall in that category. Thanks, everyone. So before we start about Grab and Go, I just wanted to give just a little bit of information about the traditional cafeteria breakfast model and why it's not the best model for school breakfast. The cafeteria model has many barriers that prevent students from getting breakfast. First, there's the stigma that school breakfast in the cafeteria is for poor kids, and to avoid this stigma, kids will just skip breakfast. For some students, breakfast first thing in the morning is just not appealing, particularly for middle school students and high school students. And so if kids aren't hungry during that time, they just won't eat breakfast in the cafeteria. Additionally, some students just can't make it into school early enough to eat in the cafeteria, and this could be for reasons beyond their control, such as their caretaker just cannot get them to school in time to eat the cafeteria breakfast, or perhaps the school bus arrived late. So with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to my colleague, Casey Mitchell, and she will talk about the 2015 No Kid Hungry pilot study.
Thanks, Summer. I'm really excited to talk to you all today about our pilot study results from this past, I'm trying to remember, I guess it's been almost 6 months now since we wrapped it up, but it took place between June of 2015 through the end of October 2015. And so just to give you a little bit of background about the innovation team, 2 years ago we started the innovation team at Share Our Strengths because we realized that our No Kid Hungry model had great tactics for a lot of different regions and areas within our campaigns, but there were some gaps and some issues within those tactics. So we needed to create a team to test new tactics to address these problems. And so one of those problems that we ran across after we did an analysis of our breakfast granting was that the Grab and Go grants that we were giving out across the country, but predominantly in Maryland where we have done the majority of our breakfast granting, weren't seeing the results that we would expect. They were a mixed bag. 50% of that, like 50% of them were what we consider underperforming. And so in order to dig into that, I did a number of site visits. I believe it was over 20 different site visits to schools to look at their Grab and Go program and really understand, what are the factors that these successful or not successful Grab and Go programs, what did they have in common, and how can we, make a hypothesis of what would be an indicator for success. And so, on this slide here, you can see there's different variables that we all consider when we are thinking through a Grab and Go model. Where is the breakfast served? Is it served in the cafeteria or on a Grab and Go cart? Or when is the breakfast served? Is it before school? Is there an option to have, availability for some Grab and Go breakfast for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the first class for late students or students just running behind? Or, is there a second chance option between first and second period, or in some cases, an entire shortened period for study hall that happens between first and second period where that breakfast can be served? And then, another really key important element that I think is sometimes overlooked is where can the kids eat that breakfast? Are they required to, only eat it in the hallway? Can they eat it in a designated seating area that may be only available when there's good weather? Or are they allowed to take it into the classroom? And so after doing all those site visits and doing that research, we came up with this hypothesis that the most successful Grab and Go models are actually after the bell, because they are more likely to reach kids. So meaning they're allowing Grab and Go breakfast to overlap between first and second period, or having a grace period in first period where the 10 to 15 minutes kids can take that breakfast and take it into the classroom. And so in order to answer that question and make sure that we felt confident that that was the best model for middle and high school in particular, we offered an RFP, or a grant to schools to apply to be a part of this. They they were already doing Grab and Go, but it was before the bell. And so what they were asked to do for 2 weeks is switch to serving breakfast after the bell, and pilot it for at least 2 weeks and see if their participation would increase. And then in order to supplement that number, because we tried to get as many grants in the door as possible, we wanted to also do a survey of other
schools that were doing grab and go across the country and understand what did their grab and go model look like, and if those who had grab and go after the bell were more successful in feeding more kids. So overall, we have results here from 108 schools, which is very exciting. And what are those results? Actually, as I said, our hypothesis was that grab and go after the bell is, was the most successful model. We were able to get more specific, actually. We were able to show that it's actually grab and go to the classroom that is the most successful model. And we're really excited to be able to share that with y'all, because I think for many FNS directors and principals alike, there's been a challenge of finding evidence to support what we all intuitively know, which is if you allow kids to take breakfast and eat in the classroom, they're not rushed, they're not forced to make a choice between socializing and breakfast. They can just take it from the cart or take it from the cafeteria and finish that breakfast in the classroom. And another exciting result that we're sharing here is that 82% of schools that participated in the pilot, although it was not required by the grant, was that they continued to grab and go after the bell post-pilot. And so just shows that maybe that for you guys, if you wanted to try this in your school, you could ask for a 2-week period where you can just try this out, and potentially it can go so well that your school will continue to have this after the bell or grab and go into the classroom as a part of your grab and go model. Another added benefit that I'm really excited to share, wasn't necessarily the purpose of the pilot, but it was just an added bonus, is that schools increase their paid participation. On average, schools experience an increase of 318% in their paid daily participation. And so, if you can just imagine how, even though it may seem like a relatively small number, but that's a daily number that you'll see in your books at the end of the month. And, the maximum increase we saw, just so you have a sense of where the range was here, was 65 more kids eating breakfast, paid kids eating breakfast every day. So that, that was definitely an exciting finding that we didn't intend to go after, but it was something that we're excited to share. We also wanted to get a sense of what the staff thought of this, because one of the other findings that we came across when doing the research of understanding why are a lot of schools doing grab and go before the bell was that, oh, well, staff, they're not supportive of allowing breakfast in the classroom, or teachers complain, and so that's why they're not doing it. And so, we surveyed all 28 schools that participated in this switching after the bell pilot, and that gave us over, I think it's 500 responses from staff across the country. And what we found was that less than 13% had a negative reaction to grab and go breakfast into the classroom. And what's even more exciting is that when they were explained why it was negative, it was that their number one concern was it creates a mess, which, as I'm sure you guys are familiar with, but I've definitely seen, is that's actually a pretty easily fixed concern by creating something that one of our partners called like a classroom cleanup kit. That's sort of just a little care package that each teacher gets, that in the case of an emergency, they can clean up after them, after that mess if it happens. But actually, in the folks that I've seen have those, they rarely use them. So we also found that there's pretty low awareness about breakfast in the classroom. So when we asked, okay, did you know that breakfast is allowed in the classroom for this 2-week period, only 52% of staff knew that that was an allowed, that kids were allowed to take their breakfast in the classroom. And so there's really an opportunity there to increase awareness, but also increase support, which is that last bullet there, saying that if you add up the number of staff that were aware of the breakfast in the classroom being allowed in the classroom, plus the number of staff that didn't know that it was allowed in the classroom but was supportive when it was explained to them what the grab and go model was, there's actually a potential to have an overwhelming majority of support in your school. So just really exciting evidence to support you potentially going to your teachers or your principal to ask them to consider making this change to grab and go, your existing grab and go program, or when you propose a new grab and go program. And so this is just a recap of sort of just what I just reiterated, or this is reiteration of what I just said, but just succinctly, the key success factors are grab-and-go breakfast should be allowed in the classrooms. You know, we really need to serve breakfast where the kids are in the morning. So if they all congregate in the cafeteria, that's great. You can have grab-and-go breakfast from the cafeteria. But, you know, the majority of schools that I've seen, their kids are allowed to walk through the halls. So it's really important to consider or try to have kiosks in those hallways. And lastly, you know, school staff need to be engaged and informed about breakfast. So, and my colleague Summer, I'm going to hand this over to her so she can go into more detail about, you know, how you guys might consider incorporating these as best practices into your breakfast model.
Great, thanks, Casey. That's really interesting information, and I'm going to be talking about the best practices based on the findings that Casey just talked about. So the first, well, as you saw, there are many things that can make grab-and-go successful in your school, and the first is to make it accessible after the bell, like Casey was saying. Don't stop serving breakfast as soon as the bell rings. Offer breakfast after the bell, so that way students who can come to school later arrive even right when the bell rings or right before the bell rings can still get breakfast. This will allow more students to be part of the breakfast program. And then another option is that second chance breakfast option. So this is when breakfast is served between first and second periods. And this works really, really well for students that are in middle and high schools who aren't hungry first thing in the morning. The next best practice is, to offer grab-and-go where the students are. This means if you're using mobile carts, it's important to put these carts where the students can easily access them. So high traffic areas. This could be hallways, this could be common areas, wherever the students frequent. This could also mean putting a cart just on the opposite end of the school so that kids who don't have time to go to the cafeteria before school starts or even right after can get a chance to have breakfast. Again, grab and go to the classroom is the best option. This is a great best practice, and like Casey said, it's shown to have the highest participation rate. This is because sometimes kids arrive late, often at no fault of their own. They don't have time to go to the cafeteria. And also sometimes students would just rather socialize before school than spend their time eating in the cafeteria. Breakfast in the classroom gives students a place to eat their breakfast after the bell, and it allows students to eat with their peers, which we've heard can be a very nice thing, a community building practice. It can sometimes be intimidating for students of different ages and grades to eat in the same location in the cafeteria in the morning, so this eliminates that. And then also breakfast in the classroom reduces social stigma because all students are eating breakfast, not just a handful of students. It's very important to engage and inform the school staff about the grab-and-go breakfast program. This means informing and engaging staff before implementation happens. This gives the staff the opportunity to ask questions, voice any concerns they have, and really be a part of the planning process. Absolutely let staff know that students can eat in the classroom. Like Casey said, teachers are not always aware that students have that option. It's important to inform the staff about what time grab and go will occur each morning and how the setup and the breakdown will happen. It's important to use a variety of channels to inform and engage the staff. This could be through staff meetings, staff bulletins, or even having a special info session on grab and go. That can all ensure that the staff is fully aware of the grab and go program, why it's being implemented, what the goals are of the program, and hopefully the results of what the school would like to see. It's also important to keep parents and students informed. Do not leave them out. Use multiple ways to notify students and parents of the school's grab and go program. This includes all the details about how the school breakfast program will change. So when will the grab and go start? What specific day will it start? What time in the morning will it happen? Details like these can be very helpful for parents and students. For students, you could also broadcast this information in the school newspaper, during morning announcements, or featured at various school events. For parents, advertising the grab and go program in the local newspaper can be very helpful, or even sending home that information with students on a flyer. just to get parents informed. You can also advertise the grab-and-go menu in various ways on the school website, in the school newspaper. Some schools we found read their menu during the morning announcements. Again, these are all ways to loop in students and parents about the program. And finally, use breakfast nudges. So nudges are another tactic that has been shown to really be useful in increasing breakfast participation. So nudges are just subtle acts of positive reinforcement and suggestion. For example, a principal could ask students as they're walking down the hallway before school starts, have you had breakfast today? And that alone can be very useful in promoting the breakfast program. So now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Michael Marcinelli from Montgomery County Public Schools. He's the supervisor of school nutrition programs, and we are thrilled to have him here today. Michael, are you there?
I am, Summer. Thank you very much. And may I go? I will begin.
Yeah, take it away, Michael.
Okay, thank you. And I'll attempt to not reiterate some of the things you've already mentioned. But good afternoon. My name is Michael Marcinelli, and I am the supervisor of school nutrition programs for the Montgomery County Public School Division in Virginia. A little bit about Montgomery County. We're located about 30 miles southwest of Roanoke, Virginia, in the middle of the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, and we're nestled in the scenic New River Valley. Montgomery County Public Schools serves a population of 96,200 people as of the 2013 census. And we're also the proud home of the Radford University Highlanders and the Virginia Tech Hokies. As an aside, my Italian-Sicilian descent requires that I use my hands to communicate. So in an effort not to intrude on Ms. Garon's time, I'll sit on my hands. Next slide, please. The Montgomery County Public School Division includes 12 elementary, 4 middle, 4 high, and 1 alternative school. Our current enrollment is just a little under 10,000, pre-K to 12. And our percentage of free and reduced price eligible is 30% and 6% respectively. As noted in the slide, School Nutrition Programs has implemented 3 alternative breakfast models. At the elementary level, grab and go in conjunction with breakfast after the bell, and including breakfast in the classroom, has been the formula that has worked best for us. Montgomery County School Board supports that school nutrition programs continues to serve breakfast after the bell, even on a 2-hour delay. For those of you unfamiliar with Virginia weather patterns, it's not uncommon for us to get snow as late in the year as April. Early morning snow often requires a delayed opening of 1 or even 2 hours. And because of the implemented alternative breakfast models, we're very fortunate to be able to provide the grab-and-go breakfast to students as soon as they leave the bus and enter the school building. In our secondary schools, the traditional breakfast model, breakfast in the cafeteria, it's still available, and it's paired with the grab-and-go, breakfast after the bell, as well as the second chance breakfast. We currently continue to offer the traditional breakfast model because Montgomery County is a large county, and some students are delivered to their schools more than half hour before their day begins. The cafeteria still provides a place for those students to congregate. Next slide, please. Recently, the Montgomery County School Board began investigating the possibility of switching elementary and secondary school start times. You see, Montgomery County uses the same buses to pick up and deliver both secondary and elementary school students. As earlier mentioned, Montgomery is a large rural county, and some students must travel a good distance by school bus. Currently, our middle high school students begin their day at 7:30 in the morning, with some students being picked up as early as 6:30. Some of our elementary school students may be picked up as early as 8 o'clock and begin their day at 9. Recent published research by the American Association of Pediatrics stated that one factor affecting secondary school student achievement is that they don't fall asleep early enough at night to get the required amount of sleep necessary to do well academically. Hence, the idea of switching the start times. What we learned is that there are many unexpected effects of just switching start times. For example, younger children getting home earlier than the older siblings that normally babysit them after school. Our current solution is that the division will keep the secondary and elementary start sequence. But they'll keep that the same, but they'll now push back the start times by 1/2 hour. Enter grab and go, breakfast in the classroom, and second chance breakfast. You see, our school board was very concerned about the ability of our students to continue to receive and have the time required to eat our well-balanced breakfasts. These alternative breakfast models were the ideal solution to their challenge. As a result, my department, school nutrition programs, and the students, they benefited from this change. The increased access to breakfast meal, including the non-traditional second chance breakfast, naturally increased participation. By moving students out of the traditional cafeteria setting, we were able to eliminate the meal benefit stigma by having all elementary students go directly to the cafeteria to pick up their grab-and-go breakfast, then right to their classroom. And that classroom is typically as a homeroom period. Benefit-eligible students were no longer isolated, and their non-benefited classmates, they began participating because little kids want to do what their classmates do. We call that positive peer pressure. Everybody wins. In the secondary level, creating alternate access points for grab and go and second chance also eliminated the isolation of meal benefit eligible children. I don't think there exists a middle or a high school student that isn't hungry after first period. Again, increased participation by all students, free and full price alike. The additional benefits included freeing up the morning custodian in the elementary level. Montgomery County has many cafetoriums, and the custodian typically had to fold up and move heavy cafeteria tables and mop the floor before the cafetorium could be used for phys ed. That no longer existed. That room was available immediately upon the school day starting. We will, over the course of time, also recognize a reduction in detergent and rinse agent costs, resulting in fewer chemicals entering the waste stream and making school nutrition programs green heroes in our community. And at the elementary level, where we have scheduled snack times, unopened meal components may be kept to be consumed later in the day. In some cases, that's a money savings for parents who often have to send a snack from home. Next slide, please. Eating away from home requires social skill. Why not provide a breakfast meal to the teacher, at least during the first year of implementation, and encourage them to use the grab-and-go breakfast in the classroom to teach the social skills and manners expected of people when eating away from home. The initial concerns about major spills, ants, and mice becoming residents of the classroom, it just doesn't occur. Our custodians do a fabulous job, and their regular cleaning procedures have not been amended to accommodate grab-and-go breakfast in the classroom. Sure, there'll be minor spills initially, but little kids want to show what they can do, and spills are relatively non-existent after the first week of implementation. I invested in some inexpensive white paper placemats for the elementary schools in an attempt to ease the minds of the teachers. Those students not eating breakfast could color on them to preoccupy themselves while the others ate. We have hand sinks in each of our classrooms, and that provides for the necessary hand sanitizing. Remember the social skill thing. As well as a receptacle for emptying unconsumed liquids, the milk or juice that may not be completely consumed. This made the trash collection less messy and made the custodians very happy. Next slide, please. It is very important to sell your superintendent on the idea first. The superintendent is your portal to the school board. The superintendent is your greatest ally. I think I used a phrase like, man, I can't think of one spill so great as to prevent one child's access to a healthy breakfast. Can you? And our superintendent couldn't deny that fact. School boards are almost always going to err on the side of the student. So once you have that support, No teacher, no matter how tenured, can dissuade a principal, no matter how obstinate, from moving forward with an alternative breakfast model. The superintendent and the school board, they're our bosses, and they become your loudest cheerleaders. I would dare someone in this division to disregard a direction from either of them. You may have to just strong-arm your custodial supervisor at first, because he or she will initially recite the ants, bugs, mice mantra. Just compliment the supervisor on how clean the classrooms have always been, and assure that person that after 1 week's time, after implementation, that their fears will be unfounded. I did it in 12 elementaries, and I was right. I even made a side bet, which he made good on. I've learned that parents appreciated hearing their children come home saying, "May I eat breakfast at school with my classmates?" Heck, wouldn't you? That's one less meal I have to prepare at home. And it's at the worst time. It's in the morning. They know how much a box of cereal costs. And I'm pretty sure that not many parents are waking up early enough to make fresh biscuits with sausage or eggs. Not unless it's a pre-made high-fat, high-sodium frozen product. Next slide, please. What works in your elementary schools may not necessarily work in your secondary schools. School construction, location of the cafeteria, students' freedom to move throughout the building. All of these, plus many other factors, will affect your decision of which alternative breakfast model or models you will select to employ. Setting up remote delivery stations using carts may be the right solution for you. I will let Ms. Garant, our next presenter, elaborate on the implementation of alternate models at the secondary level. Do keep in mind that the differences between likes and dislikes of elementary school-age children and more mature secondary level students. I noted that we learned that the elementary-age children preferred to have that bowl pack cereal option every day, whereas the older students liked more variety. Don't underestimate the effect of positive peer pressure. Eating breakfast can be cool. Eating a healthy breakfast could be cooler. Getting a breakfast between first and second period could be the coolest. Packaging matters. It really does. If you can brand a product or package it like products found at eateries outside the home, this makes a big difference. Elementary school children like the yogurt with the bunny on the label. Secondary school students like their yogurt in the parfait cup with a domed lid. And yes, they wanted the granola and the fresh fruit on top. Finally, don't forget that younger children have a more difficult time opening some package. Heck, we have to help them open ketchup and milk cartons here in Montgomery. So always keep in mind the manual dexterity limitations. Next slide, please. Know your statistics, inside and out, upside and down, upside down, such as your percentage of free and reduced participation at breakfast versus your free and reduced participation at lunch. That's a pretty strong argument when you're presenting to your superintendent and your school board. Virginia provides a state-funded incentive payment for increased breakfast program participation. That incentive funding is available to any school division that increased its per-student breakfast participation in the current year above the baseline that was established during the 2003-2004 school year. That level of funding is 22 cents per meal. That exceeds the baseline data. What more incentive did I need? Supers and school boards love to hear that. I don't know about you, but the HHFKA and the ACA put a financial whooping on me. And any additional funds that I can generate are nothing but positive. Finally, remember, an often quoted famous line from a movie, if you build it, they will come. Increase access, and they will come. Make it easy and attractive, and they will come. If it's supposed to be hot, keep it hot. If it's cold, keep it cold, and they will come. I want to thank Summer, Stephanie, Casey, and Elizabeth Brightwell for allowing me the opportunity to share my grab-and-go story. So good luck, lunch ladies and lunch gentlemen. and thank you for letting me present today.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was great information. Kathy, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'd like to introduce our next food service speaker, Kathy Garant. She's the School Food Service Director at Saranac Central School District. Kathy, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes. Anytime you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Summer, Casey, and all of the staff at No Kid Hungry, Share Our Strengths, for allowing me to present my experience with our high school grab-and-go breakfast today. My name is Kathy Garant, and I am the School Food Service Director from Saranac Central School District up in Saranac, New York. Next slide. We are located in northern New York, approximately 40 minutes from the Canadian border, so we're well up into what's called the North Country. And our school district is considered one of the 5 largest school districts in our Clinton County of New York. We encompass in our district 4 schools. We have a middle and a high school complex. We have 2 elementary schools, and each of our 4 schools does have a cafeteria associated with it. Our enrollment is approximately 1,489 students, and our grab-and-go models are a new venture for us. I have been the School Food Service Director here in our district for 17 years so far. And I have always been on the hunt for increasing our breakfast participation. I found in being a personal breakfast lover that, and encouraging it in my own family, I found it appalling the number of students who would come to school hungry and without something that they ate after their long fast from dinner the night before. We started our grab-and-go model thanks to the grant that we achieved through No Kid Hungry, and we started it in September in our high school. It was so popular, as you'll see from my other slides, that actually beginning May 2nd, we will be starting a model that's similar to our high school in our middle school. Next slide, please. So in our high school, we have a high school cafeteria that literally students have to walk downstairs to get to for breakfast. And we were actually serving about 20 to 25 students out of a population or enrollment of 434 students in our high school, which I found appalling. And, you know, it really didn't matter what food items we offered. We just could not increase that participation in our high school at breakfast. So with our grab-and-go breakfast program, we opted to leave our cafeteria open for a period of time and kind of feel things out as far as when we started our grab-and-go. And the way it worked is that we set it up about, I would say, a good 20 to 25 minutes before our actual school day starts. It is available to students who are milling around the school and have gotten into the school early, so that's a good thing. And we keep it open, so we open it about 20 minutes before the bell. And when I say the bell, that means that the students, once the first bell rings, the front doors of the high school open, and students are coming into the building to start their day from all of the buses that are out front, as well as students who are dropped off. We continue to keep our grab-and-go breakfast program open through homeroom, through announcements, and into the middle of, I would say, the first third of the first period class. So that is our timing. As far as challenges, we initially didn't have a good handle on our signage. And we really needed to point the students in the direction of what constituted a reimbursable meal, because we were very interested in obviously improving or increasing our reimbursement. So we really encouraged all students, not only financially for financial reasons, but nutritionally. You know, it's nutritional benefit to them, and everyone here knows the many benefits of eating food items in the morning, especially, again, after fasting all evening when they're sleeping. So we have since developed some great ideas for signage that has helped improve the program. Improvements were that we did add some additional equipment, just like little equipment. We just recently offered some a la carte beverages, like a bottle of water, you know, or some other snack foods to take with them for the day. Next slide. Some of our successes, allowing students to obviously grab what they would like and take it to the classroom. And I actually purchased some very inexpensive cardboard recyclable trays that literally you can just fold the sides up and the students can grab whatever food items they want. And, you know, obviously they have backpacks and things like that, which helps them direct and take their food items to their homeroom or first period class. We located our grab-and-go cart in front of our gymnasium doors. So when the students enter the building,
May I have your attention,
I'm sorry,
please?
we have announcements.
Any students who were planning to stay after
Hold
today
on
to
one
wait
second.
lift with Mr. Smith, it has been canceled. Do not stay after school to go weightlifting with Mr. Smith. There will be a library club meeting on Wednesday, April 20th, 5th period. Attention.
I
third,
apologize
fourth,
for that, but
sixth
that
grade
is our
students.
afternoon
Please
announcement.
pick up your faceplates by Friday, April.
And we're going to hear a bell as well, signifying the end of our school day. Hold on one
Third
second.
quarter, sixth grade art students, please pick up your faceplates by Friday, April 15th. Any left after Friday will be thrown out. And please remember to check the lost and found and see if you have anything there. That's it for afternoon announcements. All middle school students may be dismissed at this time.
I apologize for that. So getting back to our successes, we also found that offering foods that are popular on a kind of a modified version in local restaurants has been successful. Obviously, offering a variety of foods, the signage, again, constituting a reimbursable meal. What are we having for breakfast that day? Really kind of keying in some good energized staff and kind of pairing them with the program help to establish that rapport with students. And you know, myself as being with the staff frequently, really talking to the kids and encouraging them to come over and talk to us. And once they see what we're serving, they jump right in and take part. You really need someone who is committed to health and wellness in your district, which that is myself and my my superiors. So next slide. So how do you get leadership buy-in? Really, as food service directors, a lot of times we really need the support of our colleagues. And you know, we can't just present a program like this on our own without that. So number one is to present Grab and Go, the idea, to our superintendent or business official. If you do receive a yes, then go down to the building principal that you are looking at starting the program in, and you want to encourage them with their yes, if they say yes, to discuss it with their faculty. If need be, you could attend a faculty meeting to present information. You know, sometimes we get a principal who says absolutely not. I am not a person who does not accept the word no very frequently, so don't give up. I would say keep it going and keep kind of encouraging them to change their mind. Request a meeting with that person to discuss the many benefits of eating foods in the morning, including the ones listed on my slide. And custodial issues, also there have just been so many schools that I have spoken to where this has been a major concern and it has not been an issue. Next slide. The other advice that I would like to give my colleagues here nationwide as far as grab and go is really talk to, if you're not, like I was not educated as far as grab and go, and I can't say that when I did discuss it with my team of managers, they had their concerns. So I would say try to network with other schools and really ask so many questions. Ask questions, discuss their pros and cons, and grab suggestions for food items. That is key, is having some great food items that are going to attract your customers. And as everyone knows, financially, some of our schools nationwide are struggling to, and this is a program that does cost a little bit of startup money. Find any grants that you can find and apply for them. And that is it. I want to thank you so much for my opportunity to provide you with this information today.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was great information. I'm going to quickly highlight the No Kid Hungry blog. This blog is a great resource for school breakfast and other school meal programs that No Kid Hungry works on. The blog is where we featured our breakfast champions. The champions are school staff members, from teachers to principals to food service directors, that are doing great things in their district to promote school breakfast. So please subscribe to our blog. You can subscribe on the homepage to get regular updates. And finally, we are going to do our last polling question. We've started the poll. What would you like to see more of from Share Our Strength No Kid Hungry related to grab and go? So please start. Please enter your answers, and we'll give maybe 30 seconds for this poll. Just a few more seconds, and we'll tally the numbers. Okay, we're going to close the poll and display the results. So it looks like the majority of you would like more technical assistance for effective implementation. That's a great information to have. We at the Center for Best Practices will take note of that. And I hope you all subscribe to, like I said, the No Kid Hungry blog, and then also go to the Center for Best Practices and subscribe there, and just view all of our resources. And with that, we are at the end of our webinar. We left a little bit of time for some questions and answers. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box, and the question box, and we will take any questions you have. So I'll wait for a minute or two to see if any questions start to tabulate, if any pressing issues come up that you would like to know more about. While we're waiting for questions, one more housekeeping note. Again, as Stephanie mentioned at the very beginning of the webinar, you will get a follow-up email which will give you a link to this recorded webinar, and we will also send a survey so we can get just a little bit more information about what you thought of this webinar, what you thought was useful, et cetera, et cetera. So right now it looks like we don't have any further questions, so that means we're going to give you some more minutes in your day back. So thank you all, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're so thrilled that you, excuse me, we have one question coming in, my apologies. The question is, Are these alternative breakfast models really the only way to increase participation? Have there been other ways to increase participation through changes to quality, et cetera, of the program? That's a great question. I'm wondering if our food service directors might have a little bit of insight on that. Kathy or Michael?
Sure, I could probably just elaborate a little bit on that. I guess the question is, what else can we do as food service directors to increase participation at breakfast? I'm kind of paraphrasing. Honestly, to be honest with you, over the past 16, 17 years, I've tried probably every opportunity to increase participation, from increasing food items to changing breakfast times to changing around staff. And I have never seen an increase that I've seen. I failed to inform you that we went in our high school from just quickly serving 20 students to an average of 80 students in our high school, and I anticipate that will continue to increase. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant jump of a lot of students that we were not capturing, and that was strictly through grab and go, location, etc.
I would concur with Ms. Garant. Am I on?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yes, I would concur with Ms. Garant. In my 26 years of experience in this position with Montgomery County, I've tried just about everything to increase breakfast participation. And I have to admit, this has been the first solution that has really increased participation, which says to me that probably the number one factor to increase that helps increase breakfast is increasing access. More service points, more times, greater times, longer times, and moving it from traditional to non-traditional locations. And we, as well, increased breakfast participation in all of our elementaries, a minimum of 10%, and that's a school of 500 students that we're already feeding 350. So it's kind of not much to make there, but to as much as 300%, where we were feeding 20 children and we're now feeding 120. So I think the benefit of what I've learned is that just increasing access and with regard to time and places has been the best solution to increasing participation. I have a staff dietitian and a wonderful staff dietitian and a wonderful operations manager, both dietitians, by the way, and our menus are just wonderful. Our foods are great. So increasing the quality, I don't know that I can increase the quality, at least not within the price limitations that we're bound. So I think access is probably the greatest factor.
Thank you, Michael and Kathy. Those are great suggestions. And we have time for one more question. The question is, how do you keep students from eating several times in the same morning by going to different areas? And I'm also going to direct that to Michael and Kathy, and wondering if you've come up with this issue at all.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have, and we actually, with our grant, we were able to purchase a tablet that connects to our NutriKids point-of-sale system. And so we obviously can't take credit reimbursement-wise for more than one breakfast purchase. Our program catches that. So I would say having the appropriate technology will help with that issue.
Likewise, with Montgomery County, we use Data Business Systems point-of-sale system, which flags the meal immediately after it's been determined eligible for reimbursement. and that child can go to any number of different points of sale, and when they put in their PIN number, they are flagged, and it's immediately available to the manager or to the cashier that child has already eaten a reimbursable meal. Of course, we offer to sell them a second meal at the regular price, but it is just not reimbursable. So if they want to eat more than one breakfast, we're not preventing it, but for any USDA people listening, we're only claiming one meal per child per day.
Thank you, Michael and Kathy. And with that, we are going to end the webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you to our speakers, Michael and Kathy and Casey. Again, this webinar will be sent out to you via email. The recording you'll have access to, and also we'll send you a survey, so please fill that out. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.